So, though there may not be physical games being played on Saturday, that does not mean the intrigue around college football has dissipated. Far from it. If you've been around the channel at all this offseason, you'll know there is plenty for us to talk about, from recruiting news to coaching moves, and that's exactly what we have got to talk about today. Because just now, news broke that Georgia offensive coordinator Todd Monken is set to return to the NFL with the Baltimore Ravens, and this is something we've got to talk about. But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill, I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes, N for no. Are you surprised that Monken is leaving the Georgia Bulldogs to go back to the NFL? And let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions seem small, but they are massive to content creators such as myself, and both getting picked up and maintained by the YouTube algorithm. And we're on a push to 20,000 subscribers. I'd love to have you a part of this unbelievable journey. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And this has been something college football fans everywhere have been watching and wondering what would happen with Todd Monken. The Georgia offensive coordinator has orchestrated back-to-back top 10 scoring defenses in both the national championship campaigns the Dogs have had. And one thing we need to talk about when it comes to the Georgia Bulldogs, though all conversations are going to start with that Georgia defense, and deservedly so whenever we look at how great those defenses have been, this Georgia offense has been so impressive the previous few seasons. And I've talked about this on the live streams. I don't think people were giving Todd Monken his flowers. This guy was orchestrating a real tough offense to stop. And one of the things that was so impressive with the Todd Monken offenses is the balance that was present. Whenever a team would come into the building against Georgia, you could try and stop their run, sure, and maybe you would be successful in that. The problem is they were able to throw the ball. They were able to get completions to their tight ends. They were able to get completions to their wide receivers. And this was something I talked about with the national championship game, whenever Georgia took on TCU. Whenever we previewed that game, we were really going in on TCU versus Michigan, and how TCU was really able to kind of negate that Michigan power rushing attack. And the question was asked during the live stream, can they do the same thing to Georgia? And my contention for TCU stopping Georgia was this. It was going to be much more difficult to stop Georgia than it was going to be to stop Michigan. And the reason is because of the balance Todd Monken has in this offense. Sure, you might be able to hinder the Georgia rushing attack, and that's all well and good. How are you going to stop Brock Bowers? How are you going to stop that passing attack? If you can't stop all three phases of the Georgia offense, you're going to have a bad time, because their wide receivers were getting involved, their tight ends were getting involved, their running backs were getting involved. And because of that, it became a very difficult offense to stop, because you had so many different facets you would have to account for. And that's the balance I talked about. That's what made this Georgia offense so difficult. And on top of that, you had a veteran quarterback who Todd Monken had faith in Stetson Bennett, who you're not going to have anymore. And so this gives us an interesting question about Georgia going into next year. And so now, because of this, the question is inevitably going to be asked. First and foremost, what does this mean for the Georgia Bulldogs in the offseason? And secondly, who is going to be the guy that Kirby Smart gets? Well, let's start with the first one. What does this mean for the Dogs? And if you're a Dog fan, even though you probably would have loved, not probably, you would have loved to have kept Todd Monken, I don't think you should be inherently super worried. And the reason is this. Kirby Smart is still going to recruit very well. You're still going to be a defense-first team, and you've already had the blueprint on what it takes to be successful on the offensive side. Now, that being said, that must continue for the level of domination Georgia has experienced to continue, and that's going to be difficult to do. Winning is difficult in college football. We know this, so this is going to be a key hire. And the second one is the who, and this is what I'm really interested in seeing, and I can't wait to hear from all of you. Hop down to the comments, let me know who you would like to see as Georgia's offensive coordinator, because there's a few different ways they could go. They could keep a more pro-style, balanced attack, or they could try and switch it up a little bit. This is what's going to be so interesting to see. But one thing we do know, Monken orchestrated some fantastic offenses for the Georgia Bulldogs, and this is going to be really interesting to see how Kirby navigates this loss. This guy was a real good offensive coordinator for them, and it makes complete sense the NFL teams were interested. I can't wait to hear from all of you. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.